Hey guys, what's going on, and welcome back to episode 8 of that Wolfie Royals podcast. Cannot believe it is August already. This podcast has been fantastic for me so far. Really enjoying it. So thank you so much for your continued listening. Just a few little bits to go over this month before we get into the episode. Obviously, the IHS show announcement has been made. New location is Manchester, so not too far away from where we were before. So I don't think too many people are going to complain with that. Obviously, the date has been moved. It is now the 4th of September. I think it's a couple of weeks earlier than it was already planned to be. Talking of shows, there is also the Southwest Constrictors show announcement. That is going to be taking place at the same venue as it was last time for those of you that went. And that is on the 15th of October, which is a Saturday. So rather than the Sunday shows at Manchester, it's going to be a Saturday show at the Southwest Constrictors show. For all your details, head over to the Southwest Constrictors group on Facebook. And all of the details and how to get tickets, etc. are on there. I will be displaying at the show. I will take some animals. Hopefully I hit some good ones this season to show off. And I will be taking the podcast bits as well. So I'm thinking of doing a Southwest Constrictors show sort of special. So if you do want to come down, say a few words, spend a couple of minutes on the microphone, and hopefully we'll get something good put together. I am sure that most people are already aware of the Dave Kaufman movie on YouTube, Ball Pythons in the Wild, I think it's called. If you're not, go and have a look. It's quite an interesting, watch. It can be a little bit long, a little bit tedious at times, but I quite enjoyed it. So if you want to have a little look at what he's done, it's not a scientific research. Nothing's based on any scientific fact. It's just his findings and his experience while he was out there. So go and check it out, show him some support, and I'm sure it's doing really well at the moment on YouTube as well. The USA shipment that I'm organising with Scott Wilkinson. The closing date is the 31st of August. So if you do want anything bringing over from the States, then drop me a message. I'll send you over all the details and we can get that sorted as soon as possible. That is about it from me. So I'm going to cut this short. I'm going to get into the episode. Really good episode lined up for you this month. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So let's get straight into the new breeder segment, shall we?
Hi, this is Chris from Project Pied, founder member of the SWC group. The other members of the group are Max from CMT Royals, Darren from DJ Constrictors, Ryan from Rival Reptiles, and last but not least, Ross from Armour Key Reptiles. We founded the Southwest Constrictors group to provide a relaxed and friendly reptile show for both new and experienced breeders alike. We had some of the finest breeders in the UK attend our inaugural show back in October. Importantly, the show is brought to you by the breeders for the breeders. So why don't you come along to the next show and see for yourself. For all our updates, join and follow the Southwest Constrictors page on Facebook. We've decided to sponsor that Wolfie Royals podcast because we feel that the UK deserves a podcast like this.
And we are live. So I'm here with Steve from Hydra King Exotics. Thanks for coming on, Steve.
Thank you, no problem. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So as I said before, really brief sort of introduction about yourself, your reptile journey as such, how you got into it, why you got into it, and then we'll take it from there. So over to you.
Yeah, so it's there's myself, Stephen, and Selena, my partner, and we're Hydra King Exotics. Saying how we came up with a name, not overly sure. I know we want to get more animals in different areas, different species and stuff, so we went with the exotics rather than royals or reptiles. But other than that, it was just something that stuck. And we just went with it, and it just started with, like everybody seems to start, 1 or 2 ball pythons, and it went from there. I mean, I've had them back in 2005, I think it was. We had some royals, but we didn't carry it on and stuff. But yeah, that's how we went, and then it sort of escalated from there. And within a month or two, we had 30, and then 6 months down the line, we were 100. So, but yeah, we started just at the start of COVID, literally March of 2020.
So you're about 2 years in now, then.
Yeah, 2 years, second season this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many are you expecting for your second season?
So we've had 6 clutches with the incubator now empty, but there's looking like 3 or 4 still going to drop, and
Okay.
the pair still going. So I think we paired between 18 and 20 this season, and we've had one mouldy egg.
Okay.
All the clutches, so we've done quite well, really.
Done pretty well with the numbers then.
Yeah. I mean, I was just looking at it earlier, and I think about 50, 60 hatchlings, something like that at the minute.
Pretty cool. Pretty good. Not bad for a second season. What sort of numbers did you do on your first?
Well, we got really lucky. I paired 8 and we hit 6 clutches, one of which was a 14 egger.
Oh, Jesus.
And there was an 11 and a 9. I think the lowest was 6 that season. This year it was like 4 with a new mum.
Come on, you smashed some double figures then. A lot of double-digit clutches.
Yeah, well, got lucky really. I just went with, we got a pinstripe single gene female, but she's like 5 kilos.
Yeah.
And, now I've got like 6.5, and she laid 14 last season, but this season she's about to drop, and, palpated her, and I can sort of count 16, 17, somewhere around there.
Oh, geez.
So, she's just getting bigger, and then we've got an 8 kilo normal female who's not gone yet.
8 kilos, Jesus. That's swallowed someone's cat.
Yeah. So, but she just has the old feeder rats and that now. She doesn't need small weaners and that. She's huge.
Yeah, she takes whatever she wants at 8 kilos.
Yeah. That's why the cat don't come in here.
Don't blame it. That wouldn't be going in there either if I was that small.
No, for some reason the dog won't come in this room either. It goes in one of the other rooms, but it won't come in this room. So maybe he's got a sense.
Don't blame it. Smart animal. Yeah. Smart animal, that one.
Mm.
So what sort of projects and genes are you working with? What's your main sort of focus sort of going forward?
It was hard. It's like everybody else. It was hard to narrow down in the beginning. I mean, first 2 snakes were males. So that, your typical kind of error really, because it's always that thought of you should get females and grow them up. But in terms of we've been quite fortunate. I was looking forward to the Confusion project this season, but the model was a little bit immature. Tried him. I think he had 1 or 2 locks here and there, but he hasn't performed. So, and just we're going to grow him up for next season. But we did pair a Cypress Leopard Black Pewter male
Nice.
to the Pinstripes, who's going to lay 14, 16 or whatever. And then they've just shed out the first clutch that he signed. So it was like an entry pin, black pastel leopard, black pewter, Cypress Leopard, black pewter, entry pin. But it's tested IDing skills, let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's not going to be the easiest one. There's a lot of genes floating about, but it's a good mix there.
Yeah. So they're the ones we've been looking forward to, really. There was a few. I mean, we've got a pastel red stripe female, which we had from the beginning, and she didn't go last season, and she's gone this season, laid us 7, 8 or 9, I think. And we've hit 4 or 5 fire red stripe het clowns.
Okay.
And some ones with pastel in there as well, which we didn't get too much pastel, which was good. And the ratios were like, I think we've got 4 males and 5 females, something like that.
That's good going.
So we've done a lot of the ratio. Yeah. But that was a project I'm really looking forward to, because it's just kind of, it's drifting towards the Pompeii, but it's also like, if those genes can create something so nice as what Justin created with the Pompeii, then what else can you put with those genes to something different?
Yeah, completely. I mean, I think red stripe's a must in clown at the moment. If you look at all of the Pompeii and the magma stuff, it's such a subtle gene, but when mixed with like fire, yellow belly, it does some crazy things. So I think red stripe's definitely a good one to have a few female holdbacks of.
Yeah, and I think we're going to keep a male back, I think, because we've got Orange Dream het clowns and stuff like that. And I got a female off Ross, which was an OD leopard clown, 100% het pied.
Okay.
And, if you put fire red stripe het clown to that, hit the clowns, posset pieds, the
There's a lot of possibilities there, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And then we've got from last season, we actually hit the double het clown pieds. So I've got like 5 in the rack, 3 females, 2 males. So I kept all of them back.
Pretty nice. So is that your main sort of focus recessive wise? Is it clown and pied?
Yeah, I mean it is, but when I do something, I don't do it by halves.
Yeah, I've lost you a bit, mate.
Yeah, so we've got like I said, we don't do things by halves. So we've got Xanthic, which we've only got a couple of, and then DG, Pied. Trying to think, when it just escapes.
You've got your fingers in many pies then.
Yeah, we tried to. Het G stripes, ain't got visual yet, but het G stripes as well. It just kind of like, it's all about the triple and quadruple recessive hets and stuff like that. So
just trying to build
having
them up.
there and having them there in the racks to go, you know what, I fancy doing this season and that this season. I want to change it up, or this male doesn't go. Well, that's no drama, because we can just switch that clown section out and do it with G stripe, but at least it's still like a double het G.
Still getting some recessive work in there.
Yeah. So, but it's a long haul. It's, the Cypress is a lovely gene and a great combo male, but I didn't put him to any recessives. So we've got no het Cypresses.
I would be getting that Cypress into the red stripe female.
Yeah. I think that for next season, that's definitely one that's on there, I think, or the Confusion. That's the hard thing. If the Confusion male goes, I'll be wanting him to have the time of his life with the ladies compared to anything else. But that's a Confusion GHI black pastel yellow belly. So he's gorgeous. But they're the 2 power males. But recessives, you've got to get into them, haven't you? You've got to.
There's never a bad time to make recessive combos, whether it be hets or visuals. Just make them if you've got no other plans, or you've got no guaranteed sort of plans going forward. Just make some hets.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. It's one of those, like, if you want to be in the hobby for a long time, as all of us probably do, I think that the recessives is what kind of will enable that.
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, I think it's like recessives are the whole market's going towards double recessive, triple recessive, things like that. So if you're not making them now, it's you're always going to be behind that curve a little bit. So even like I say, even if you've got no plans, just get some recessives made. You can't go wrong with having combo het clowns sat in the rack. You're never going to go wrong with those.
I'm back. I don't know what happened there.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think you can really go wrong with just making some, combo recessive females and putting them in the racks and, just wait for them for 2-3 years and see what happens. If you're sitting on some clown combo hets, you're never going to be in a bad position going forward. No.
And it gives you a lot more scope. And like you say, if you're behind that curve, it's hard to come back from that. It's hard to get your hatchlings and what you want to produce to a similar level to be able to be in the hobby in that way. When you're looking at recessives, obviously, if you want a collection and you enjoy your hobby and your primary is pinstripe enchies and mystic mojaves, and you're not too interested in recessives, then that's absolutely fine. But it's just in my opinion, it can be a different hobby altogether, in terms of longevity.
Yeah, completely. I mean, like I say, you just look at the market, everything's going towards double recessives, triple recessives at the moment, and it's that's just the way that everything's going to go. And if it does go into more recessives, then those codoms and those incomplete dominants are still going to have their place because people need them to make those combos. But you look at anything now, you look at a red stripe, just a red stripe at the moment, but you put het clown onto that and it goes flying through the roof. So it's recessives are what are holding the value at the moment going forward, and probably will do for the foreseeable future for me.
Yeah, and recessives, I mean, to an extent, codoms and dominant genes are the same, but recessives, they're like a trend. I find them a bit like a fashion trend. Like Red Stripe's been around for ages as a codon, but it starts being talked about, or Justin produces something, or somebody with a lot of exposure produces something, and all of a sudden it becomes popular and the value goes up. And it's like when I was a kid, there was trainers that were a brand of pony, and it was a brand that people wanted then. Nowadays, if they turned up, people won't touch them. Right?
Yeah, they used to sponsor Tottenham, didn't they? Pony. Yeah. Or they were the kit makers for Tottenham. One of them. Yeah,
it's the same kind of principle. Like Ultramel, it wasn't the greatest of recessives for popularity, but then certain people have gone on and on and on about it, how good it's going to be, and now it's like they literally, I've cut eggs and I've hit I'm really lucky to hit a couple of visual Ultramels, and messages come through saying, "Are you selling?" And they're not out the egg yet.
Yeah. The Justin effect.
The Justin effect. This was the effect, isn't it? Effect.
Yeah. So, but no, it happens. Those trends do swing in and out, and when you look at Clown's been around for what? Probably 15, 20 years now, quite comfortably, if not longer, since the first clowns were produced. And, they're probably more popular now than they ever were.
Yeah. And I think that's because not only has it got that exposure by Justin and others, it's what it does in genes. It's the amount of other co-dominant genes that we can put with it, and how they look.
Oh, yeah, completely. So going forward, what's the plan for you? Where do you want to be in sort of 3 years, 5 years time?
So like everybody else, I'm not getting any younger, and I do a lot of hours at work, and I work away. So in a way, it's a hobby, but at the same time, I'd love it to be enough to stay at home, even if I can go to work and not be away from at work, if you know what I mean. Because the big chunk of my income is the working away. So just kind of in that direction. I certainly want big numbers, but that's because I like working with so many different recessives in a collection. I'm not into just sort of one or two, like we discussed. So from that perspective, our next step at the minute is to slow down the intake, because we're at like 215 animals or something.
Jesus.
Yeah, plus the hatchlings. So, it's a number that can vastly get out of control if you're not, sort of paying attention.
Oh, absolutely.
So slow down over the next sort of 12, 24 months, but build a facility in the garden, which we've got the footprints for, and we're starting. But it's, I think you may have saw a photo of a tree right in the way one time. An apple tree, it's been a pain in the ass. But I mean, that's kind of the direction we want to go in. But like I say, we are exotics, and as much as I'm not allowed venomous, I am in the plannings of getting other stuff, a few mammals that are exotic and stuff like that. So, and they can all go in the garden. So
that'd be cool. What sort of things do you want to add? What are you looking at? Sort of pursuing
royals, or
just in general, in sort of exotics.
In exotics, meerkats.
Okay.
So like a colony or a group of those, but we want them hand reared. Spend a lot of time with them. I don't want to be working away if we've got animals like that. And then I've always wanted macaws.
Yeah.
Parrots. Again, high maintenance and a lot of attention needed. Otherwise, don't go near them, you lose your fingers. But in terms of ball pythons, we've said unless it really is something that we're in love with in terms of genetics, it's just adding 1 or 2 genes a year, maybe. If strangers on my list and stuff like that, but nothing, no massive numbers anymore. But if I could get a DWA, probably alligators.
Okay.
I've got a big enough for them. But DWA is quite easy to get round here, apparently. Like the council are quite...
I don't know what's happening with DWA, though, because most places now have stopped in a DWA license, haven't they? DWA insurance.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you're going to get a license without insurance these days, whether they're going to bring something else in, or there's going to be changes to their requirements, or whether they're doing it to try and stop people getting them. I don't know.
I don't overly know. And the only step I did was we spoke to the vet and asked him to fill in the forms for the council, because you have to have an inspection by a vet, and they charge a lovely £750 per application, and that's just the vet. Yeah, so but there is a friend of ours who's a venomous keeper about 7 or 8 miles away. So I'll probably tap him up for the advice and how he gets his license.
Yeah, don't you have to do like mentorship or something as well to get it?
Yeah, there's stuff like that depending on the species, I think. And Milton Keynes do a course. Again, he put me in touch with that, so that's on my list for a couple of weeks, a couple of years time. So yeah, but it's one step at a time. The Royals are really where it's at, and then, like I say, it's just growing it from there and what we want to do.
So where's the sweet spot for you with Royals? Where do you want to be numbers wise? What's like the sort of the number where you go, do you know what, this is the perfect amount of what we've got?
So in terms of for ease, we sort of with 250, somewhere around there. If everything went to plan and early retirement and all that, and we had the facility, it'd be great to be at sort of 750, 800,
Jesus,
somewhere around there. But that's sort of allowing for sort of half a dozen recessive or joint recessive projects, and then having different males and females and stuff. But the theory behind that would be that a lot of the females would be every other year.
Yeah,
there'll be a lot of keeping good condition, because obviously the amount of the animals that you have, the more problems you're likely to come into.
Yeah, of course.
If God forbid you get things that are serious with an animal, they spread pretty like wildfire pretty quickly. So you just don't want that with a collection any size, but let alone some 750, 800 animals in one room.
Yeah. So out of your sort of 210, 215 at the moment, how many of those are sort of breeding weight females?
Breeding weight females, it's probably 35, 40, something like that. Next season will be the season where I'll probably pulling all my hair out, to be honest, because I think that's where they're going to be, if I'm perfectly honest. Because like we've got one room that's all the females and some hatchlings, and then when they lay, because it's in the same property, when they lay, they come into this room that I'm in now, out of the breeding room, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just so that they're on a pure feeding rotation and just being looked after, really. There's no risk of a male accidentally going into a tub or anything like that, stressing them out, just keeping quality control. But there is 120, 130, if not more, females I've encountered, and I reckon there's over 100 of those will be ready next season. So whether I get to pair them all or not is another matter.
But you've got the option if you wanted to. I mean, it's a hell of a lot of work. It's hard enough with 30 odd animals, like breeding weight females. That's still potentially, I mean, if you said 30, even if they laid 5 eggs each, that's 150 hatchlings.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
You times that by 2 or 3, that's a fair old number to be working with.
It is. You start hitting 200, 300, 400 hatchlings, and I think it's there's some here that are a pain in the ass to get going, started on the food. So yeah, it's one of those. But we've only just gone from ceramic water bowls to the deli cups, and that's just a lifesaver.
Biggest saver of time that I've ever had while cleaning is changing to disposable water bowls.
Yeah,
just being able to not worry about standing there scrubbing them out. I just tip the water away, put a new one in, done. And yeah, it's an added expense, but it's, for what it is, it's pennies compared to the time I used to stand there scrubbing water bowls and getting things ready. The greatest saver of time.
Yeah, it can be, all the admin and stuff that we do in terms of the pairings and the stock of the rodents and stuff. I do that in the lorry at night just while I'm bored. So, I've got no option.
Yeah.
I've got to get stuff done so that I get back at the weekend and have time with the family. But and then we've got to do the rodents every week and so on and so forth. So it kind of, your time disappears pretty quickly with the animals.
Yeah, no, it does completely. So you mentioned sort of, how many clutches did you say it was this year? So
this year we've had 6.
And you've got a few more to go.
Yeah, there's a few that are definitely going to go. And then I think there's a few that might, but they're still locking, and we've given the males some time off. And then this week I put them back in with certain females to see whether they locked or whatever, and they did. But the females have been growing, so you're
there or thereabouts for this season then.
Yeah, but because of the males we've got and the fact that apart from one, they're all hammering food.
Yeah.
It ends up being an all year season, all round the all round season. I won't be complaining because spreading it out over.
Yeah, I always do the same. I've got not always out of choice. I've just got a few females that I know will lay towards the end of the year. They'd always lay around September, so I don't bother pairing them up until sort of about a month, 2 months ago. I started pairing them because I know exactly what they'll do. They'll wait and wait and wait, and I think every year I've bred them, they've laid within about a day or two of the previous date, so they're pretty much like clockwork.
Yeah, and that's what you want, isn't it? If you know roughly when they're going to go, it helps with your breeding just as much as ultrasounds help with when you pair as well. So it's things like that that really do make it easier.
So we are moving on to the end of the time, so I'm going to get a few questions out there for you. Top 3 inspirations within the hobby.
Within the hobby, obviously it's got to be Justin.
Yep.
For just his wizardry with the genes. I think Billy would be one as well, into just his enthusiasm. From I watched so much of what he's done, and just his enthusiasm to the hobby. And then I think in terms of UK, I think Ross McKee. I think
he's got some great stuff, Ross.
Yeah, and he's just one of the best from my opinion. He's just the stuff he produces and the quality is just brilliant.
Yeah, he's got some fantastic animals.
I like Ross.
Oh, Ross, yeah. I mean, he's one of the most genuine guys you'll ever meet. He's a lovely guy.
Yeah, no, can't fault him.
So where can people find you on social media? What's your Instagram or your Facebook handles or whatever you use?
Yeah, sure. So we're Hydra King Exotics on Instagram, and we've got a Hydra King Exotics page on Facebook, which is generally a duplication of Instagram. It posts there straight after. We're on Morph Market, but obviously second season, so not much goes up, and I have to be encouraged to put stuff up, put it that way, because most of it staying. If it's 22 females so far this season, something like that, it's 22 old backs in my book. But and then Stephen Attiwell or Selena Payton on Facebook.
But no, I mean, unless there's anything else you want to cover, I'm about done. No,
not really. I've really enjoyed it, and thank you for having me on. It's been good and interesting.
No problem at all, mate. So yeah, as Stephen said, Facebook, Instagram, Hydra King Exotics. Go and give him a follow, see what he's up to. And, if anything does become available, I'm sure it will be on Morph Market at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
No worries. Cheers for coming on, Steve. Speak to you soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Andy over at Club More Reptiles in Liverpool, sponsoring the Wolfies podcast. We've decided to sponsor the podcast because we massively believe in the reptile community and especially Royal Pythons. So if you're ever in the Liverpool area and you fancy popping in to say hi and having a brew, then come on over. Anyway, back to Wolfie on the podcast.
And there we go, guys. That was Steve Attiwell of Hydra King Exotics. If you're not already, head over to his social media pages, drop him a follow, Instagram, Facebook, wherever he can be found. Just have a look at what he's doing, show some support. Sounds like he's got a busy future ahead of him. On to the main guest. Now, this guy, some of you may or may not have heard of. Eddie is an absolute diamond of a guy. Hilarious, fantastic cook, supplied plenty of beer. This episode was absolutely fantastic to record. We had a blast down there. Really, really good day, and he's absolutely raised the bar for hospitality on a podcast episode. So everyone has a lot to follow. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is Eddie Ford of Sunbury Serpents.
Hi, I'm Darren from Wild Rex, and you're listening to That Wolfie Rules podcast. If you're in the UK and looking for affordable custom enclosures, check out Wild Rex on Instagram and Facebook. Back to the podcast.
So we are joined by Eddie Ford from Sunbury Serpents today. Thanks very much for your hospitality.
Pleasure. Always a pleasure. Nice to see other snake people.
Yeah, I'm just going to say other people have got a lot to follow up with the spread that we've just had. So I think you've definitely raised the bar for podcasts now.
Yeah, well, sharing snakes is one of my passions, and sharing food is my other. So yeah, definitely, it was a good feed. Yeah, good to share with you.
It sure was. I'm definitely not going to go hungry for a while. So yeah, keep it really brief and simple. Where and how did you get into reptiles? Sort of what year? How did it come about? And why?
I had my first reptile experience when I was 7 years old. I went to a birthday party. I guess a lot of people did. Very similar sort of situation. Went to a birthday party, held a crested gecko, held a ball python, and somebody put a red-tailed boa around my neck. Massive red-tailed boa around my neck. And I fell in love with it, it felt amazing. It felt like I was empowered, I guess. And I just, at that point, thought I desperately want to have a snake. But with my family, it wasn't the easiest thing to persuade them for me to do. And, obviously when I was that age, everything's very much out of your control. And that was the first moment I experienced reptiles. And I didn't have my own, I had my first pet, which was actually an arachnid. I had a tarantula, a Mexican red-kneed tarantula, when I was 11, and I had her for 4 years. Then I went away to school. I went to boarding school, so went away and had to give her away. When I came back from boarding school, when I finished boarding school, that was when I really sort of started to build up that interest of having snakes. Having snakes. And my first snake was a corn snake, so I started off with a corn. She was a bit of a bastard. She was fast. She was a bit aggressive.
Yeah.
So it was quite a good snake to start me off with. Kind of, I thought line me up for bigger, faster, more aggressive snakes in a way. I thought I could handle it. And actually went from a corn snake to a ball python. And as you do, it concertinaed, and I ended up with like 15 in the first 2 years. I went down that classic line of, I got a normal because it was a pet shop snake. She was beautiful. Her name was Coraline. She was a lovely animal. And then I bought myself a fire and an enchi and and this and that and a pied and a clown. And I didn't really have any aim. I think the aim for me at the time was because I all of a sudden could have reptiles. I just bought as many as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And never really had the idea. The idea of breeding for me was, it wasn't even there. So it was more about keeping the snakes, enjoying them, sharing them with friends, and attempting to share with family, which didn't really go down very well. And then then I went away travelling. So I went away and had to give away my animals. So it was a difficult decision. I knew I had to go away. I sort of had some personal stuff to deal with. So I went away for a long time. So my animals went into other people's care, and went travelling for a very, very long time. Ended up living in Southeast Asia. When I came back from Southeast Asia, obviously I thought I'd been out there, I'd kind of, been living a life. I came back here, and the idea when I came back to the UK was to settle down and to have a family, because my now wife was pregnant with our son, with our first child. So moved back to the UK, and I started talking about reptiles and started the idea of, I'd like a snake, can I have a snake? And my wife was very anti the idea, so it didn't really happen, didn't materialise. And I was a bit cheeky, so after a few years I was like, you know what, she's not going to let me have one, and I'm never going to have one, so I'm just going to bite the bullet and buy one without permission. So I did it, got in quite a lot of shit for quite a few weeks. And eventually she was calm. She never went near the snake. She'd sort of look at it through the viv and go, yeah, I don't want to go anywhere near that. That needs to be out of the house, and just kept telling me it needs to be out of the house. And then I bought another one and another one and another one and another one. And then she was like, right, it's either me or the snakes. So I couldn't build her a wife house. So I built myself a reptile house, and or like a little room for reptiles. And I got them out of the house and into a garage. And it just went from there, really. It just kind of, the collection that's when I started to think about breeding. I guess I started to look at more on Morph, like Morph Market. Well, not so much Morph Market, because it was more the forums back then.
Yeah.
So I was on Captive Bredder quite a lot, like talking to people. Ryan Stevens, funnily enough, was one person I spoke to quite a bit. And the idea of it, going to people's houses to pick up snakes, seeing collections, seeing females, seeing eggs, seeing big females on eggs, and seeing, the potential of it. I thought to myself, well, I've got an outdoor space, I might as well go ahead and do it. So I bought males. I didn't do it right because I was an amateur. I didn't really know what I was doing. I'm still an amateur, to be fair. But I bought lots of males, not realising that the ideal way to do it is buy your females, grow them up, and then buy a quality male. And again, I didn't really have a main goal of breeding. I just wanted to experience it. And then I bought a pair of clowns. So I had a clown male and a clown female. And that was the first recessive I got into. And it just went on from there. I've been very lucky in terms of the people I know in the hobby and the way I progressed through the hobby. I met my friend Tony Hersey very early on, who had a decent sized collection at that point. He had goals, he had things that he was aiming for, and he inspired me to sort of go away, think about my direction. So I did that, went away, and I spoke to him every day, and we WhatsApped all the time, and we were just talking about things, and then he would sort of send me messages saying, oh, I've got this het for sale or that het for sale, and I just fitted them into the project. So my first ever project was a recessive. It was a clown project, and I produced some incredible stuff. And from then on, it kind of, obviously I saw the potential in pieds, and I saw the potential in other recessive projects. But pied and clown were my mainstay at start. I wanted to produce a super of everything I could think of. I wanted a super Mojave, I wanted a super fire, super spot nose, and it has only really been in the last sort of 3 or 4 years where I've looked at my collection and I've gone, actually, if I focus and I don't go buying whatever I want to buy from anywhere, I can actually build my own collection over a number of years, have my own ideas and have my own train of thought. So that's basically where it sort of all came from. And, this is 11 years in, and I'm breeding every year. I don't have massive amounts of clutches. I probably, between 5 and 15 a year. And that's enough for me. And as you can see in my room, it's pretty loaded. So I need more racks now. So I can
plenty of room spare though to add some more in.
Exactly, yeah. And that was a big thing. Doing the house up, moving from my original room to this new room has allowed me, it's a 5x5, bit of a monster of a room. And obviously I've got enough space for way more racks all the way round. Obviously the piano is going to go. So there'll be a sink here. There'll be a window above the sink. I've got a proper door coming in so it's more secure. So yeah, the potential's there and the future's bright for me and Sunbury Serpents.
So you talk about your direction. I think it's fair to say a lot of your animals and a lot of your collection isn't the mainstream sort of genes that you see people working with. So was that a decision that you sort of made consciously, or was that something you just sort of dropped into or fell into?
Yeah, I had projects ongoing. So I had a clown project. I was kind of aiming for Super Cinnamons was one of the ones that I produced an incredible clutch from. But as you know, Supers, Cinnamons, like Super Black Pastels have issues. Yeah. King and various things. So I produced one Super Cinnamon in this clutch. The rest of the clutch were totally fucked, to be honest. It was really, really horrible. So I sort of went away from that. And I joined forces at an early stage with Tony Hersey, who allowed me to have a large selection of his animals and sort of kind of evolve into his breeding plans and his breeding program, but to give me the experience. And what ended up kind of as started out as a good thing didn't go as well. And I think it's, it's a lesson for me. And I think it's a piece of knowledge I can impart on other people. Doing projects with mates is a great thing to do. And I think if you're in a position to do it with your mates and you're happy to do it, but understanding the potential things can go wrong, then it's brilliant. But with Tony and us, it sort of went a bit south, went a bit sour. I kind of, Tony wanted things for his projects and me to help him progress his projects, whereas I kind of wanted stuff for myself. So after a long period of thinking about things, we parted company. And as part of it, and I have to be thankful for Tony for giving me some animals as part of our sort of parting gesture. But it just so happens that the animals that he let me keep are the animals that basically unlocked two of my now big projects, which I never thought of, I never expected. Obviously Tony works heavily with splatter, and more with migraine, heavily with migraine and various other things. And he bought I can't remember what it was now. It was an Orange Dream something lace from Aussie Boyd years and years ago. So he'd obviously put lace into his projects, and lace and splatter are very similar in the way that they kind of present themselves in genetics or even on their own. So I got all these animals, and the more I grew them on, I started pairing them. And he very kindly gave me, and that's one thing he's got. He's very generous, Tony. He gave me an Enchi Splatter migraine male, and this male went to a couple of the females that I got from him, or was given, when we parted. And all of a sudden, I start firing out all these Exanthics, and it's like all of a sudden I'm going, where are all these Exanthics going from? I'm talking to Tony saying, I'm getting Exanthics from the snakes you're giving me. What's happening? And he's like, oh, I'm not really sure. Eventually, he comes back to me and says, oh, there was this guy whose name was Mohammed. I don't know who he was. It must have been before my time. Who had some really cool stuff. Had some lace animals. Had some Exanthic lines. And my biggest problem at the moment, it's a nice problem to have, is I don't know the Exanthic line. But basically, yeah, a lot of my, I suppose going back to that question, a lot of my projects have come from unexpected angles. So I've now got this incredible line of lace, really high quality line of lace. I've got an Exanthic line, I haven't got a clue what it is. For the last 3 years, I've been producing het migraine stuff, some nice lace stuff, growing it all on, and just kind of pushing those projects. But there are, and Malum is another really cool one that I'm working with, which not that many people are working with, and I think it just needed a bit of time. It needed to be put into the right genetics, or putting the right genetics together, and it just needed to be played with. And I think, as you've seen, I've got a couple of cool Malum animals. I've got a breeder female Malum who's just laid a clutch from my Yellow Belly Desert Ghost, so I'm going recessive again. So there are some quite unusual bits in here, and I like open. I've got a female I just showed you, the Pastel Wookie female. That's another angle which I was going to put into the migraine project, or the splatter migraine project, but now I'm kind of thinking, I'll just go Exanthic with everything. But I can keep, I can line breed the Exanthic, but I need to find out what the line is. So that's a bit of a mind boggler, that one. But there's some cool bits in here, and I'm still working with Clown, and I'm still working with Pied. But the majority of my collection at the moment is lace and het migraine or migraine. So it's slightly more unusual. I know a lot of people are working with Pied and Clown, and there's a lot of cool stuff being done with many different projects and other recessives. And I picked a Monarch female up from downstairs, so there's another recessive to grow up and throw in. But that's it's a long-term thing. But at the moment, I'm looking at racks full of quite cool stuff, some quite unique bits, and it's all a bit of a lottery because half of it could be het Exanthic. So pretty cool, pretty happy with it.
So how do you decide to progress those sort of projects that you're doing then? Because obviously they're not that mainstream, you don't see sort of many ideas out there. What are you looking for to take those to the next level?
Well, I think the obvious angle for the migraine project is, although I've got a lot of splatter in my migraine project, I would quite like to be able to line breed to the point where I have migraine animals and splatter and super splatter animals, because I think the migraine animals on their own are amazing, and the super splatters, which I've got a couple of wicked examples here, super splatter on their own are bright and incredible and look just very unique. The lace project, the obvious angle for the lace project
is the clowns.
Is the white lace. So obviously I'm shooting for white lace, but next year we'll be shooting for white lace, Exanthic, various. So white lace Exanthics, yellow belly white lace Exanthic. I'm also, this year, my founding lace female has given me a clutch of, not very big clutch, but a 5-egg clutch from a Yellow Belly Desert Ghost. So I'm already putting Yellow Belly into the lace project to enhance it further. So I think for me, the two sort of main focuses and main goals, although I'm maintaining, looking after and keeping all the other animals, I'm quite happy to keep and sit on animals and grow them up and feed them and breed them when they're ready to be involved in a project. But I think, super splatters, migraine needs various other, super orange dream, leopard, things like that, which work really well with a lot of things. Super Orange Dream's great because it just then you're spreading orange.
The intensity of everything is crazy.
And the intensity of everything's good. The colours are bright. And I've got, in my Splatter Migraine project, I've got the other advantage of a lot of the animals being het russo. So that adds another level of brightness, another level of cleanliness to an animal. And I think those are really my focus. I think clown, I hit full on, and I've produced incredible stuff. And I've got, I've produced probably 50, 60 clowns over the years. And for some reason, I've moved them on, or I've sold animals that I've, at the time, has been, as you do, you think, it's going to be a great idea to sell an animal because I can make some money straight away, and then you sell it and you go, why the hell did I just sell it? I've just put myself back another year.
Instant sellers are great.
So I have that all the time, hence the reason I'm a bit of a hoarder, and I just keep back things because I like to look at the potential of an animal. I like to see how an animal will develop if certain genetics, and we know there are genes out there like, low quality pastel that might creep into your collection, or just pastel in general that might dull out an animal, and pastel in clown is one of those things. I think if you've got pastel in clown but you're adding, say, black pastel or blackhead or or Wookie, something like that, then it will work. But there are certain things that work and don't work in the clown project for me. I mean, I'm not chasing anything. I'm not chasing Justin, I'm not chasing Billy, I'm not chasing any of the massive breeders. I'm quite happy to sit back and watch what they do. And, obviously Paul at Urban Constrictors got some incredible stuff going on with clown. So I like just watching it and producing the odd clown here and there. And I still, it's exciting to hatch things, but I'm in no rush. I'm not racing to be at the pinnacle of the hobby and be above or ahead of anyone else, because I never will. I never want to feel like that. I don't want to be sitting on my pyre going, I'm better than everybody else. It's more about just enjoying it for myself and sharing it with the likes of you guys, and just, that's what the hobby's about for me, just having a bit of fun.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing you mentioned there is that one thing we mentioned earlier is you're quite distant from the social media in terms of presence, I guess. Again, was that something you decided to do? Was it just something you've not really been interested in and sort of putting yourself out there as much? Because I bet there's a hell of a lot of people that don't know the projects you're working with or the animals that you've got here.
Yeah, I think in terms of social media, I think, with the platforms that we've got, Facebook, Instagram, they're linked anyway. Twitter, they're probably linked.
They're all part of the metaverse at some point,
they're
aren't
all
they?
one big conglomerate. They're all kind of out there to help us stretch that little bit further and extend our reach further in the world. But I think Facebook for me, just about a year and a half ago, Facebook for me just got to an all-time low. It was especially in the reptile community, which is basically the reason I was on Facebook. It got a bit toxic. It's just, especially in the UK for me, it just feels like, and I'm sure it's the same in the US, but it's a far grander scale over there. Over here, it just seemed a little bit poisonous. People attacking people all the time, and there are all these different groups to help you and to try and advise you, but on those groups you had admin who were coming in and slagging people off and causing fights and arguments. And I've got to a point in my life where I'm like, I'm not fussed about, I love people. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a vindictive, horrible person, but I got to a point where I was like, I've got to look after myself now. I'm not going to spend my time bickering with idiots about shit they don't know anything about. And I'm no expert, but I'm done dealing with twats on Facebook. And, the groups are toxic. The community in the UK is brilliant, but it has its moments. And sometimes I just need to step away from it because I've got, I've helped run a business. I've got a family to look after with young kids. I'm doing a build on my house, and I've got my snakes to look after. So having that little time on social media has now got down to the point where I'm on Instagram, and Instagram for me is great. People can comment, but it's not like your comments flashed up and people see it. It's more you post a picture of something you like the look of and go, this is what it is. This is my little story about it, and you move on. And that's the way I've evolved to be. And Facebook for me is a thing of the past. I don't use it. I'm never on it. I have Messenger because I've got mates still on Facebook who I say, look, if you want to get hold of me on Facebook, just message me. But that's as far as my social media reach goes now, is Instagram. And I think more people would probably know about it if I was on Facebook more and sharing more. And I think that's in a way, maybe I've shot myself in the foot, because that's one of the things in a hobby that if you've got a reach in social media, people will read about you more. They'll hear about you. They'll be able to talk to you. They'll be able to comment on your posts. But as I said before, where I am now in terms of myself and my hobby, I'm kind of happy, and I'm not fussed about having that interaction and having that toxicity in my life. And it's like days like this where you can share a beer, share experiences, show some animals, have a bit of food, have a laugh, that make the hobby what it is for me. And I like the reptile meetings. To be honest, if I'm going to be brutally honest, I can't be arsed driving 3 hours to Donny, because it's just, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
If I had the time, I would do it. The southern shows, I didn't go to the last one. I had a table at the, what was it called?
Southwest Constrictors.
Southwest Constrictors, run by a wicked group of guys, all with equally as much passion and wicked collections. Didn't go to it. I do regret that. I had to work. And so those sorts of things, those events are great. And that's another way of putting yourself out there. But I think for me personally now, what I do and the way I prove myself to people and the way I show off to people, if people want me to show off what I do, is I produce an amazing desert ghost animal. I produce a desert ghost white lace xanthic clown or whatever, and people see that and go, Jesus Christ, actually this guy's been in the background busy doing his thing, but all of a sudden after 10 years has come up with
Some
the only
crazy
one of
stuff.
these animals in the world, and it's incredible. And that's how you get known, and you look at, and that's sort of how I look at how, obviously Darren Stairs has been around for a really long time. He's another one. He's an incredible guy. He's he's got an incredible collection. And then you get those little pinnacles in your time as a breeder where you hit that pastel tri-stripe DG.
Yeah.
And you just think, fuck me, the entire world was like, that must have been one of the most viewed pictures on social media for a good couple of years. And it's moments like that you build up to yourself, within yourself, and you do your project. And you never think within what your wildest dreams that 2 eggs you're going to produce the one snake.
The jackpot.
Half the people around the globe want to buy because it's just the only one out. It's the only one out there. And I think that's it. I think for me, I'm quite happy just to plod away and then go one day. I did it with the xanthics when I produced those, and they were an accident. So that was quite a cool accident. I produced 2 xanthic laces in a clutch, and I showed them off, and everyone was like, "Holy shit!" And all of a sudden, you gain 500 followers on Instagram because people see that. But I mean, now I kind of look at my Instagram and I don't go to the top and scroll and see how many people are following me or how many people I've lost. It's more a matter of, I look at my Instagram just to kind of give myself a memory of other things. But yeah, I'm sure that time will come. I'm sure, someone in America might go, "Oh my God, look at that xanthic, that super pastel xanthic Wookiee white lace hypo pied clown that he's just produced 16 years from now," and go, "Fucking hell, he's been working in the background doing some cool stuff." And yeah, but I think I'm happy where I am now. I'm not too fussed about having messages every single day from people wanting to see things, buy things, and that sort of stuff. I'll keep it low key, keep it amongst a small group of mates, and yeah, that's
I think what you said there about Facebook is probably pretty true for most people in the hobby. I don't think anyone's actually not enjoying Facebook, I guess, but I think a lot of people, especially using it for the snakes and things, have moved completely away from Facebook because, like you said, it is just a toxic sort of negative playground for people, and Instagram has definitely been far, far greater and certainly a lot easier on people's mental health and just their enjoyment of the hobby. Yeah,
I think so. I do think, and also with it's something my wife never wants me talking about, but things like the pandemic, which has it's damaged a lot of people beyond repair, and it's really it's hit everyone really hard, and we're coming out the other end of it. But coming out the other end of it, we're all of a sudden in a fucking recession, and it's like we're being hit financially, and things are hard enough. Without that aside, then going on Facebook and getting torn apart for saying something
Doom
like,
and gloom, yeah.
Saying like, "Oh, you shouldn't have a heat mat in your Viv." Next thing you know, you've got 50 people emailing you and messaging you saying you're an absolute, cunt, and you shouldn't be in a hobby because you're a scumbag. So I don't need it. I think a lot of people don't, and I think I don't think Facebook's the way forward. Definitely.
No, I completely agree. So what's next for Sunbury Serpents? Where do you see yourself in sort of 5 years' time? Where do you want to be? What do you want to have achieved?
I think in terms of Sunbury Serpents, I've seen a gradual progression in the quality of my collection, the size of my collection, the variety in my collection. But I do think in 5 years' time, 5 years from now, I will have narrowed down my collection to, I would like to think, 5 projects with not necessarily with an end game, because I think thinking about an end game for a project is kind of a bit too definite for me. I think it's more...
It's very limiting.
It's very limiting. Yeah, you limit yourself and you think, okay, what I want to produce the quad recessive or whatever. That's never been a goal for me, and I don't think I'd have the space for it even with a room this big. So 5 years from now, I'd like to see myself with 5 projects, perhaps another 200 tubs, stepping away from working my day-to-day, my 9 to 5 job, so I have the time to look after my animals to the best of my ability to give them everything they need. And still enjoying the hobby, and I think, and still socialising, still mingling with people, still going to meetups and sharing experiences, and doing the inevitable, which is selling people quality animals, quality healthy animals that they can be proud of having, and then they can go and tell their mates where they got them from, and and that's another way, I suppose, of me getting my name out there. But
that's the best word of advertising, isn't it? Word of mouth.
It's showing off a snake that you bought from somebody. And and I've said it in previous podcasts, and I'll say it again. Buying animals from Gareth at Clean Balls UK. That's one of the people who buying animals from. When you show off an animal, people know where it comes from.
Yeah.
And I think that's I'd like to see myself like that in a few years' time. But yeah, I think refining my collection, making it even more unique than it is now. And it's not by no way a way of me trying to increase the amount I can sell animals for or make more money from my animals, because that's never been my goal. My goal is just to enjoy my collection and my animals. So yeah, I think that's going to be me. 5 projects, all incredible. Don't think I'll go for the quad hets because it's just too much time. But yeah, I think that's where I see myself in about 5 years, and still happy. Yeah,
it's a pretty clear, definitive goal though, and sort of an end target to aim for, which I think is pretty good, because there's a lot of people that don't have any real ambition with where they want to take things or any real clear direction. So actually having something in your mind that you're working towards is probably the best thing to be doing.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, and fair play, a lot of people just want to breed to try breeding, and they want to just to get that experience because they've seen a relative or a friend do it. And I by all means, I'd say go ahead and do it. But I mean, if you're gonna get a collection of snakes, get a snake rack, all I would say is just think about it, put some real effort into thinking about what you want to do, where you want to go. Don't necessarily look on social media and say, oh, look, I want to produce everything Justin's produced. Think about it for yourself, look at the colours and the patterns you like. Obviously, the limitations are going to be price, because you can buy a snake for 50 quid or you can buy a snake for 50 grand. I mean, it's totally up to you. But that's it. And but I think one of the problems in the hobby, which is going to become more prevalent as the years go by and as the rules and regulations become stricter, is people breeding just for the sake of breeding, and flooding the pet market to the point that we just cannot sustain it anymore. And I think that's one of my little things. I think about it when I breed, and I think in terms of, oh, should I be breeding this year? Do I have the space? If I don't have the space, why am I breeding? And if I breed these, will I be able to sell them? Will I be able to move them on? Are they desirable? But I mean, the way my collection started, I would have been able to sell all my single gene stuff. It would have been fine. Or it goes to a friend who has a pet shop. I've got a couple of friends with pet shops, and it's nice to be able to give them some stuff. I don't want money for it. Give them things to help them move on. But that's what I think. I think if you're going to get into it and try it, brilliant. But think about it. Think about your direction.
Wise words. So, outside of the hobby, what is it that you do? What makes Eddie tick?
Number one is probably the family. I've got an amazing wife who obviously moved to the UK with me from Thailand. She's been here now 12 years, settled in she's a member of the family. She's brilliant. I've got 3 amazing kids. Bit mental because one's 22, one's 11, and one's just been born. So I've certainly stretched it out. And my family's everything to me. Family's one of the most important things in my life, and I think, and that will always be the case. For a job for 20 years, for the last 20 years, if we take away the 3 most recent years, 20 years prior to that, I was a landscape gardener. So I was gardening all the time. Always been a gardener. That's all I've ever known. And then a couple of my mates decided to found some green tech over in the US and decided to start a company. So the company I work for is called the Magical Mushroom Company, and we don't supply the country with drugs. I assure you that now. That's my disclaimer. We use mycelium, the root structure of mushrooms, to make packaging, fully compostable, biodegradable, eco packaging that you can just throw in your garden and it's gone in 40 days. So that's my other thing. So I'm kind of senior management at that company. I've been helping run the Isha site, which is just down the road from me, for the last 2.5, nearly 3 years. So that's what my job is. So day to day. So I mean, my life is pretty busy. The older I've got, the busier it's got. But I'm quite hyper. That's the way I am. I like being busy. If I'm idle, I tend to get quite stressed out. I like to have a room full of snakes to clean and look after and enjoy and feed, and the family to spend time with, and also working 50 hours a week. So yeah, I mean that's generally my day to day. And obviously I've just come back from Glastonbury, which was wicked. So I do a lot of partying as well. So I like to have a good time.
Rubbing shoulders with the stars, I hear.
Well, I like to try.
So, new people coming into the hobby, what would be your 3 best bits of advice to give them?
Think small to start out with. In terms of the thinking side of things, think small. Don't look at a big collection and think you want to be there in 3 years or you want to be there in a year. Think small. Think very particularly about the direction you want to go in. Second piece of advice, get your females and grow them up before you get your males, because you'll be so much happier when your female's fully grown and ready to breed after 2 to 3 years, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, however quickly they go. Then go out and buy your powerhouse male and make some cool animals. My third piece of advice, tricky advice. Get a piano in your snake room.
It is great fun.
It's definitely brilliant. Have a little tinkle.
We've definitely been distracted by having a piano in a snake room today. So
yeah, no, it's good.
What do you wish that people had told you when you was coming into the hobby? What sort of mistakes could you have avoided if people would give you some advice?
I think my first piece of advice, it would have been nice for me to come into the hobby and be told by somebody, although I came into the hobby and I didn't have many mates in the hobby. You go to a pet shop, they're not going to say, oh, only buy 1, grow it up. They're going to want you to buy 5. So that's probably my only thing, was not having somebody there to give me the advice to say, don't go mad, don't buy millions of snakes, think about your genetics. So I didn't have that, so I did what the majority of us do, came in and just went mental.
And that's how it racked up numbers pretty quick.
Exactly. Yeah.
Best things about the hobby for you?
The people away from Facebook. Socialising, hatching incredible animals, and also getting those surprises when you hatch and you haven't got a clue that you're actually getting something you get. So the Exanthics for me. And I mean, I guess, the overriding thing for me is always going to be community. It's got to be the hobby. It's got to be the people you share the hobby with. Because you can very quickly rat out the rotters, and you can, the good ones, and just surround yourself with the good ones. And that's what I've been lucky enough to do.
And what would you say is the worst things about the hobby?
Facebook. The worst things about the hobby. I mean, you know what? I as much as I think the community is brilliant, I think the community still needs a shitload of work. I think there are professional breeders. There are breeders who have decent sized collections. There are people, old school people who are but you can see the old generations. I'm not going to name names. The older generations are kind of leaving the hobby because of what they're seeing coming through, because they're seeing youngsters come through with loads of money and loads of ambition and incredible animals, and maybe they feel they haven't quite done what they thought they could have done. Next question.
So you mentioned there about that sort of the older generation and the old school breeders leaving. Do you see that as a negative, or do you think it's something that maybe those old school breeders should embrace the change, embrace the the use of social media more, the use of those people coming into the hobby and dropping big money on first, second, third snakes and whatever, and trying to make an impact?
Yeah. Well, I think again, it comes down to community. If you've been in the hobby for 30 years, or you've kept snakes, or you've kept reptiles for 30, 40 years, and you're a lot older, and you're leaving the hobby because you're bitter, because people, or you haven't fulfilled your dreams, and you think you're going to be overtaken by people. I don't know. It's a mindset, and I do think that if you've been in the hobby a long time, you've got to be a point of reference. You've got to be someone who is prepared to have people ask you questions, and prepared for the fact that the snake industry here is a bit of a seesaw. Some years it's brilliant and you can do really well. Other years you can't sell a hatchling for love nor money. And I think having older people with advice and knowledge and the experiences they've had in the hobby is really important. And it's a shame that a lot of them are leaving. Some of them are leaving for personal reasons. Others are leaving because they're just bitter and they're just not particularly happy with the way the hobby is. And I think that is also that's the attribute from that has come from Facebook. I think and social media is difficult because the older generations aren't, they're used to captive bred in the old forums where you just type a chat and you have a conversation and you might meet people at things. Nowadays, it's all about WhatsApping, getting direct people's numbers and being very very involved. And I think the older you get, and I'll probably be, I don't think I'll ever be a bitter old man, but I think the older I get, the more I appreciate what I've got, and the more I want to be a family man. But I'm always prepared to sit down on my phone if somebody, one of my mates in the hobby sends me a message and says, I've got a real problem. Can you give me some help? I'm not quite sure what to do. I could really do with a bit of advice. And I think having the older generations in the hobby is important. But to be fair, the older generations who are leaving the hobby now are being replaced by the younger professional, the younger people who have businesses with reptiles, people who have gigantic collections, people who are producing incredible stuff. Not everyone wants to be at the forefront of everything, but it's good for people in the hobby to know that there are people that you can rely on. And the majority of people I've dealt with or spoken to have been good people. You get the odd one who's just doesn't quite get it, and maybe they're a lot younger and they don't have any manners, need a little slap. But it's just, the generational thing's a difficult one in the hobby. And also, the money side of things in the hobby, I think's got a bit silly. People kind of entering the hobby because they think they can be a millionaire. If you want to be a millionaire, you've got to start as a billionaire.
And then watch yourself lose it.
You just watch yourself buying and buying and buying and buying. I mean, unless you're incredible at, if you've got a good business mind, brilliant. If you haven't, you're just going to lose all your money and be unhappy. So I've spent a shitload of money on what I've got now, but I've enjoyed every step of the way, and that's all. I'd say that to other people. Don't spend a shitload, but if you've got a shitload and you want to spend a shitload, think about what you're going to do, and make sure you enjoy it, and you can deal with. I had 200 snakes at one point, and I was having mental breakdowns, having nervous breakdown because I couldn't keep up with the cleaning. So I think people need to, certainly take advice from older ones, but also understand the current environment we're in now, which is. It's weird. It's a strange environment to be in, so we have to, as a community, come closer together. While the old generation's gone, the new generation's coming in, but just join together as best we can and help each other.
Definitely. I think that's definitely what's lacking from the community itself, is that sort of togetherness through everything. There's a lot of branches of people, and you get these wars of, it's cliques and things like this, but it's a relatively small community. As much as people think it's a massive amount of people in the UK that are, there might be a massive amount of people in the UK keeping reptiles, but the actual side of breeding, especially royals and stuff, there's not as many people as people make out.
No.
And people seem to know each other, and everyone seems to know everyone else. So it makes no sense to be fighting about it when you're trying to do the same thing.
No, I mean, I saw on, and this was on Instagram. And it's obviously Facebook and Instagram are linked, so you do get some stuff that they post on Facebook that might go to Instagram. And I've seen in the last couple of weeks, there's bickering going on between two companies, and you think, okay, fair enough. there's always going to be a rivalry with companies and with people, but there's people attacking people verbally threatening, physically threatening, and it's like, you know,
it makes no sense.
As a community, it's like, come on, man, you know, all you're going to do is alienate yourself from everybody else, although you might be surrounded by a bunch of reptile people, or, you know, so-called reptile people. It just seems a bit mad. So it sort of, it does creep in, and I do see it, and it is sad to see, and I'm kind of, I never want that. I never want that conflict. You know, I'd never knock someone out over a snake. You know, it's not going to happen. It's just, you don't need it. But yeah, I saw that the other day. That's one thing I hadn't seen in a long time, and I saw someone post something and was like, oh, really?
It makes no sense with the sort of negative attention that the hobby's getting already to be bickering within the hobby amongst yourselves. It's something so trivial. It's
a hobby.
Exactly.
You know, we've got activists breathing down our necks who want to shut us down completely. And, you know, it's not, from my point of view, the whole, I understand animal rights activists. It's what they want to do. They can do it. That's fine. But there's so much misunderstanding. They just don't understand. All they're an activist. They're like they're like one of these fucking Greenpeace activists who's all about the environment, yet they smoke weed that they haven't got a clue where it's grown, how it's grown, how many pesticides are grown in it. And it's this strange thing. You get people like supergluing themselves to motorways over fuel, and then they get in their diesel car and drive home.
Yeah.
And it's all a bit strange. And I think animal activists are probably the same. They're probably just a bunch of people who have got nothing better to do. But we have to be really careful as a hobby to, you know, we've got to show that we do care about our animals, we do care about the community, and we have to band together and become a strong unit. I mean, it's not so much about fighting them. I think there's this thing of fight the activists, fight the animal rights people. It shouldn't be a fight. It should be a constructive movement to help them understand and help them realise that actually what we're doing is a good thing. We are breeding the animals captively, but we're looking after them. And I think there's this element that these sort of, you know, these animal rights people are like, oh no, you know, everything you do is wrong, everything you do is terrible. Come back with some facts and come back with some actual knowledge and have a constructive discussion, and not start shutting shows down and allowing us to, you know, to sort of help each other in the hobby. It's mad.
Definitely. Like I say, it makes no sense. Like you say, you've got to band together and you've got to be a united front on it, really. At the end of the day, it's pointless separating yourself from a large section of the hobby just to betterment yourself, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you said you've been in it about sort of 11, 12 years. Who were the names when you sort of first came in that helped you out the most? Who did you sort of look up to? Who did you sort of aspire to be like?
I suppose the first person I really sort of got to know was Tony Hersey, because that was the beginning of my things, the beginning of my experience through Tony, because he was in the same project as Tony Wilson. I got to know Tony Wilson quite well. I got to know Chris Jones, who founded the Splatter Project, quite well. I met the likes of Darren Hughes, and again, another person who you need to know in the hobby. And through these people, you meet others. And I guess Tony was one of the first people to kind of steer me and try and guide me and help me. And then our relationship developed, and I sort of went out on my merry way, and I met, now I've met you. Obviously I know Darren for a while, and going to reptile meetings, meeting other people. And I suppose that was the beginning, but I mean, you know, I'm still meeting amazing people, still meeting some superb breeders. Jason, I remember not so much inspirations or people who've guided me, but I remember one of the Chris Jones meetings. It was very weird because they were all sitting around in a little crew, giggling and chuckling to each other, at everybody else in the room. And I was stood with Ross McKee and Jason Chu, I think his name's Jason Chu, just having a really nice conversation. And again, those two other genuine people in the hobby, really nice people. And you can see, I think I'm a fairly good judge of character. And as much as I took from Tony Wilson, I think I started to see a side of him that was like, ugh, I'm not very happy anymore. I'm not, he seemed a little bit bitter and a little bit up and down. Tony Hersey, I've remained in contact with. We're good friends. I go and see him on a regular basis. Well, I say regular, used to be regular until we had a baby.
Not together.
I haven't seen Darren Hughes for a while, but he turned up. So he's here.
I thought you said you was a good judge of character.
And there are a lot of people. I think put me on the spot. I can't remember names now. I could, if I had 20 minutes to sit down and write down a bunch of names, I'd have a decent list of people who I've been able to talk to, who've been able to who get along really, really well with, and have a general sort of understanding. But the great thing is all these, even if you met someone for the first time or you've known them for 15 years, you can walk into a room full of snakes and all of a sudden it's like when you see an old friend, you switch, you suddenly go, right, let's talk snakes. You all start opening tubs and discussing things, and we all have a common interest. And I think that's the thing I love about it, and that's the thing that gives me the buzz. Any snake room I go into, I walk out and I'm like, right, I'm going to go back in my room, pull all my tubs open and play with all my snakes.
See what I can do.
Exactly.
So we touched on it earlier about sort of the projects that you're working with. Are there any projects in the past or genes in the past that you've missed a chance on, or you've passed up an opportunity on that you wish you hadn't?
I would probably say Gene X. I've passed up Gene X before. I passed up Gene X numerous times. I really like that project. The Ultramel project or Monarch project, I passed up. I'd looked at it and I'd seen some really nice animals for sale. And obviously I've always started with hets. So I start with hets and I go to visual and get the visual. You sell the hets or you keep the male het and put that to the visual female. And as I said before, I've now got into the Monarch project. But I think that was probably the one thing I missed. I'd always wanted to produce a Batman. That for me was one of the things in my clown arsenal that I wanted to produce. But it just fell by the wayside. It was something that, for some reason, I loved clown. I loved clown at the beginning, and for some reason, my interest in clown faded as my interest in splatter and migraine and lace increased. So clown it's not taking a back seat because I still have a number of females, a number of males. But yeah, that's one of the things that I kind of regret not pushing my clown project to the limit and doing enough with it, and perhaps I wasn't ambitious enough. And at a certain point, maybe I was skint, so I just didn't want to go out. I didn't have the money to go out and spend. Didn't have the money to buy animals. And I think now I've got where I've got. I look back and I try not to think of the things that I've missed because I feel I have everything here that I need to progress everything that I'm doing. But yeah, Monarch was one, but now I have it. Never produced a Batman, still haven't produced a Batman, but I think I'm just going to give up on that one. Yeah.
On the flip side, are there any genes or projects that you're wanting to add that you think are either slept on or have got a load of future potential that's not yet been tapped?
Actually, I'd probably say there isn't anything more that I'd want to add to my collection. I mean, if I narrow down all the genetics in this room, I can reel them all off. I've got my lace, I've got Xanthics, I've got Orange Dream Migraine, I've got Desert Ghost, Het Desert Ghost, I've got Malum, I've got Clown, Het Clown Pieds, I've got Wookie, there's so many different, and I've got Confusion recently, Pastel Confusion, Het Desert Ghost female. So there's sort of an amalgamation of some incredible genetics that I feel like is kind of enough. If I add more, especially recessives, which are the one thing, we all love a recessive project, but I've got enough of them. But I can't think of another gene. And I've got some trick, and I've got, but at the moment, I can't think of another genetic that I'd want to add. They keep coming. I mean, in America, they seem to find a new gene every day. I mean, to be honest,
there's a few popping up, isn't there?
The whole finding new genetic thing, maybe I'm a bit snobby about it. I look at it and I'm like, look, half the genes that get found look like half the genes that have already been found. So it's just people going, mine looks a bit different, therefore I'm going to call, yours is called Bob, mine's called Dave. That's it. So that...
It's not the worst name I've heard for some genes either.
I may well call something Dave, because I do like to call things Dave. I've got Dave down there. I've got a red-tailed boa called Dave, but I'm not getting him out because he's an arsehole. But no, I can't think of any other genetic I would like to add to my collection. There are some really cool genes out there that do cool things, but I think at the moment my mind is so full of all the stuff that I've got in this room, I can't think of anything. In fact, no, sorry, all right. Just scrub all that, delete all that. No, Mario's a wicked.
Okay.
Mario's really cool, and I know for a fact that Gareth at Clean Balls has got some Het DG Mario stuff.
Yes.
So that's something that, you know, maybe in the near future I might want to add to my DG project. I think that would be very cool. Desert Ghost, Super Mario Desert Ghost Clowns might be quite nice.
Is there a belief that Mario and Jungle Woma are the same gene?
That I'm not entirely sure about, to be honest. I've seen very little Jungle Woma. I've seen what Justin's done with it. I know Darren Stairs has some Jungle Woma. It looks really cool. I think Jungle Woma
He's got the Super
Clowns
as well, isn't he? He's got the puzzle back.
That's right, yeah. So I think I really like it. I think it's really cool, but I'm not entirely sure whether it'd be the same. I mean, that's something that I'd need to sit down and spend a bit of time poring over pictures and looking at things. I mean, I'm no geneticist. I'm quite good at picking genes from combos. I'm not going to be one of these people who tries to produce the 19 gene animal, because you're not going to see 18 of those genes in it. You know, I believe it's not. The simpler, the better. Some of the most stunning animals I've got in here are 2 genes, and that's all you need. But yeah, I think I'm not sure if they're the same.
I know I've seen comments in sort of US forums and things where they've mentioned about Mario and Jungle Woma possibly being the same, or whether they're allelic or something, I don't know, but I'm sure someone will find out pretty soon.
Somebody like Justin, who's probably, well, as we know, the guy's got a big collection and an extra farm for all his quad hets. So if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be somebody like that. We know, like, Justin's probably the one breeder on the planet who has a broad array, like probably the widest range of recessives and projects that he's putting different codoms and doms into. And I think he will be, inevitably, he'll be the one who secretly line breeds both of them, Jungle Woma and Mario, and 4 or 5 years down the line, he will have 50 breeder females of each project, and so he's always going to be the one who comes up trumps and finds out what's what. And I thought at one point, when I produced the Exanthic laces and I've mulled over it for a year, and I'm thinking maybe he's the person who's probably got every line of Exanthic, who I could just give. Give him an Exanthic lace and go figure out that line of Exanthic, and then then we'll do a deal or something like that. But he would be the person to go, right, I don't want to share a project, I just want you to figure out what it is, because he'd do it in a couple of years. Yeah. And that would be really cool. And I think for me to know what line it would be good, not only for my own personal satisfaction and not having to fill my racks with every line of Exanthic, but also I get a lot of people messaging me about the lace animals with Justin and with Seth Silbert doing loads of lace clown stuff. A lot of people message me about lace het clowns. What lace have I got for sale? And when I tell them it's all het Exanthic or het for pos het for an Exanthic, and can't tell them the line, that's where the conversation ends. Yeah. And I have to be realistic, and I have to be able to move animals on. I have to be able to sell animals to make space for more animals that I produce or buy in. So finding it out is an inevitability, and it's something that I need to do over the next 3 or 4 years, or 3 to 5 years, because eventually I'll run out of room and nobody's going to want an Exanthic line that no one knows anything about.
And there's a few lines out there to try it against as well, isn't there? Was there 4 lines of Exanthic now? Something like that?
Yeah, so we've got Jolliffe, NJ, TSK, VPI, Black Exanthic.
So you're up to 5 already.
Up to 5, and I think there's a few more. Red Exanthic, but that's not. That's like.
That's a.
What's it called?
That's poorly named. Yeah, it's a het red that's poorly named, isn't it?
Right. So yeah, that's my biggest thing at the moment. I think is that I think just as much as I love producing all the Exanthic stuff, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, I know roughly what animals have got it. Obviously, I've got animals growing on that will possibly be het Exanthic, but at some point, I'll have to stop line breeding them, and maintain and look after them, while I find out from various different angles what that line is.
Yeah, it makes sense. Right, we're going to start wrapping it up pretty shortly. Now, seeing as we've been spoiled and had some fantastic food earlier, 4 tables around your chair, 4 chairs around your table for dinner. Pick who you want, dead or alive, who you inviting. Oh,
right. Dennis Bergkamp. He's got to be the one. one of them. Bob Marley. Jesus. Dennis Bergkamp and Bob Marley, they get on quite well. One's Dutch and one smokes weed.
Both good footballers, though.
Both good footballers.
Yeah, Bob Marley was apparently a very good footballer.
Was
wasn't
he?
Yeah.
No way. Game of keep you uppy after dessert. Gordon Bennett. Winston Churchill.
And one left.
Oh my God. Oh, flipping heck.
Who's he?
You know what? throw a. Oh, that's a tricky one. All right, I'm gonna say Nelson Mandela.
That'd be a really good table. Next question: what are you doing? What are you showing off your cooking skills with? What is your starters, your mains, and your dessert?
Starter is probably Muping Kauniao, which is barbecued pork and sticky rice. My main course, bear in mind my wife's Thai, so it's all going to be Thai. And it's all my favourite food. My main course is Somtam Pulbala, which is papaya salad with fermented crab, and also sided with sticky rice and salad. And for dessert, I'm going to be really boring and say profiterole rolls. Love profiterole rolls. We forgot to eat them because I've got a shitload in the fridge.
Oh, we can always go back. That's not a problem at all. And I think it would be rude for us not to finish with you playing the piano. So we're going to put something and put you on the spot.
Oh my God.
And you're going to tinkle those little ivories away and off you go.
Oh, here we go. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. I don't know the bloody words. In my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, oh let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be.
Thank you very much. It has been an absolute pleasure. And let's go and have some more beers and eat some more food, shall we?
Good plan. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for agreeing to come on. And again, thanks for your hospitality. And that right there is Mr. Eddie Ford, people. It was a fantastic podcast to record. Eddie is fascinating. He's got loads of experience, loads of knowledge, and just a genuine, all-round, fantastic, funny guy. So if you're not already, head over to Instagram, follow him under Sunbury Serpents, keep an eye on what he's doing, look at some of the projects that he's got going on. And that's about it from me, really. So, as I said earlier at the top of the show, IHS dates, go and check those out. SWC dates, head over to Facebook and follow those for all the information there. USA shipment, give me a message if you want any animals shipping over from the US. Closing date is pretty soon. And yeah, I'm pretty much done. So, until the next one, peace.